Althea by the Grateful Dead was released in 1980 and has been, in my personal experience of listening to the Grateful Dead, the most captivating and lyrically interesting song in their entire discography. Today, I will be breaking down the meaning behind what has not infrequently been discussed as not only one of the greatest songs of all time, but also one of the greatest stories ever told in music. At its face, the song Althea seems to be about a narrator named Jim speaking with his partner, girlfriend, or perhaps even his wife, whose name is Althea. In the song, Jim is unsure about his current standing in life and seems to be talking through the possibility of ending things with his partner, Althea. He tells Althea that he is lost, lacking in some direction, as the lyrics say. This lyric, underscored by the deceptively lazy and laid-back riff of the song, kicks it off profoundly and simply. The idea of lacking in some direction speaks to a phenomenon that surely nearly all of those listening to the song have experienced to some extent in their own lives. It's not just the feeling of being lost, it's the feeling of not even knowing how you were lost. You feel a sort of missing piece in the puzzle that is your life, but you have no idea as to where you might even begin to search for that missing piece, or even where exactly the piece is missing in the first place. Althea at first does not give Jim much reassurance. She agrees that something is wrong with what's happening to him, saying that his back might need protection. Jim agrees, saying that treachery is tearing him limb from limb. Presumably here he's talking about friends or people that are close to him that seem to be going behind his back or not having his best intentions at heart. But Althea offers the narrator some reassurance, or rather tells him to chill out, saying, "Settle back, easy Jim." Then Althea starts to help Jim examine who he could possibly be, perhaps in an attempt to help him identify where that missing piece of his puzzle might be, or perhaps just to reassure him of all of the possibilities that his life holds. This speaks to the idea that in each of us there are endless possibilities. Day to day, week to week, and year to year, we might be completely different than how we were before, having different views of ourselves, different views of our friends, our surroundings, and our circumstance. One day you might feel like you're king of the world, and the next as though you are completely worthless. Althea explains this in the song, saying you might be Saturday's child all grown. With Saturday commonly being held as the best day of the week, to be a child of Saturday all grown is like being the best of the best, and in your prime as you are now matured just beyond childhood. But Althea goes on to say that you might also be a clown in a burying ground, nothing more than a poor joke among the dead. Althea also says you may be the fate of Ophelia, sleeping and perchance to dream. I think that this lyric is very important to the song as it seems to allude to the legend of Ophelia as created by Shakespeare in his famous playwright, Hamlet. Ophelia in Hamlet is a symbol of purity and virtue. In Hamlet, she is driven to madness and death by possible suicide because of the destructiveness of political corruption and personal betrayal that she experiences along her path of being in love with Hamlet. This calls back to the beginning of the song where Jim, the narrator of Althea, is experiencing treachery and needs to watch his back, as Althea says. In the end, Ophelia's tragic death, which is described as possibly by suicide, happens in a stream surrounded by flowers, exemplifying the tragedy of beauty and innocence in a corrupt and unforgiving world. The lyric "sleeping and perchance to dream" is indicative of Ophelia's final rest, her final escape from the corruption and evil of our world into the beyond. The song's allusion to dreaming in this verse alludes to how when we are in our dreams, we have a chance to live in a world that is more pure and good than the real one that we experience day to day. However, after this, Althea seems to switch up a little bit, saying that no one is messing with you but you, and that your friends are getting most concerned. Here, she is expressing a sort of paradoxical point to the previous one that she made, one that is still true nonetheless, that nobody is really messing with you but you, your friends are getting most concerned. No one is really going that far out of their way to mess with your flow or what you are doing. Sure, someone might criticize you and your actions, but how often is someone actually expending drastic amounts of energy to deter you from your goals? Almost, if not never. When you encounter criticism or roadblocks, it is how you engage with those obstacles that truly end up messing with you. If someone says something that you are doing is stupid and you let that get to your head and stop you from doing what you were doing, the real cause for your change in behavior is yourself and your susceptibility to the outside world. People for the most part are extremely self-centered, seeing occurrences in the real world just as things happening to them. And this is expressed in the song where Althea says, self-centered to the extreme. Althea then ups the stakes of her advice to the narrator, calling Jim to action. She points out that in the end, or in the words of the song, when the smoke has cleared, you're going to want a bed to lay your head and a little sympathy. In other words, you're going to want some peace and comfort in the end of your life, a warm bed to lay in, and a partner or people around you who offer you sympathy in the hard times. She emphasizes that the narrator is going to need to start thinking about these things, saying there are things you can replace and others you cannot. The time has come to weigh those things. This space is getting hot. In other words, you need to start considering what is really important in your life. Who is really important in your life? You need to stop being so selfish and acting like you have all of the time in the world. But Jim, in what I think is the most beautiful part of the song, through these last few verses, doubles down on his stance. He scoffs at the advice of Althea, saying, "I'm a roving sign and I was born to be a bachelor." Basically, that he doesn't care what she says and that she is wrong. He doesn't need to weigh those things because he was born to be free and wild, not chained down by the weights of long-term commitment or other such anchors in life. Here, Althea does something interesting, and rather than pushing back against Jim, she accepts his stance, saying that's okay, it's fine. Only now, when Althea lets the narrator have his way and lets him go, does he now turn around and want her back. In the lyrics, "So now I'm trying to catch her." This speaks profoundly to our human nature of wanting what we cannot have and taking things for granted. It's like, for instance, when someone is playing hard to get in the early stages of a relationship to make the other person want them more. It's like the common trope of not knowing what you have until it's gone, and I would even argue it's like how so many people seem to crave Chick-fil-A on Sundays. These last few lyrics of the song are ones that have always struck me the most in their messaging. They read, "Can't talk to you without talking to me. We're guilty of the same old things. Thinking a lot about less and less and forgetting the love we bring." This speaks to a truth that I believe not many people are even fully aware of, and that is the profound phenomenon of people talking to themselves essentially all of the time, even when and often particularly when they are talking to someone else. A common way to see this is when you hear someone being judgmental or overly critical about someone else. Someone might go off on their friend, classmate, or coworker for being messy or inconsiderate, when in actuality this is a trait that they themselves are self-conscious and guilty of. It's like that Key and Peele sketch where the bully at school is going off on some random kid about being poor and possibly a homosexual, when in actuality those are traits that the bully is himself fearful and insecure about. Even in the Bible, it talks about this. In Romans 2:1, it says, "Because you who pass judgment do the same things." We are all guilty of these things, as the song goes on to explain. Finally, in the last lyrics, it speaks to when you get older, you think about less and less. Your life becomes simpler, and subsequently you lose some of the variety in both your actions and thoughts. You start thinking about the same things over and over, with little room for things that fall outside of your day-to-day routine. And in this way, too, we forget the beautiful uniqueness that we contribute to the world. We forget the love that we bring.